Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Okay, let's get started.
Sahana bhavatu sahanau bhunaktu saha viryankaravavahai tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sri Gita Dhyanam. Om Parthaya Pratibhuditam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshini Bhagavati Ashtadashadhyayini Amba Tvamanusandadhami Bhagavad-gite Bhavadveshini Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullaravindayatapatra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharatatallapurnaha Prajvalido Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Sutra Vaitrika Panaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Gita Mritaduhe Namaha Sarvopanishadu Gavu Dugda Gopalanandanaha Partho Vatsasudhir Bhokta Dugdam Gitamritam Mahat Vasudevasudam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Bhishmadrona Tata Jayadrata Jala Gandhara Nilotpala Shalyagrahawati Kripena Vahani Karnena Velakula Ashwathama Vikarna Gora Makara Duryodhanavartini Sotirna Khalu Pandavairananadi Kaivartaka Keshavaha Parasharyavachah sarojamamalam Geetarthagandotkattam Nanakhyanakesaram Harikatha Sambodhana Bodhitam Loke sajjana shatparairaharaha Pipiyamanam muda Bhuyad Bharata Pankajam Kalimala Pradvamsina Shreyase Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayati girim yat kripatamaham vande paramananda madhavam yam brahma varunendra rudra marutaha sunvanti divyaistavaihi vede sangha padakramopanishade gayanti yam samagaha Dhyanavastita tadgatina manasa पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः.
Hari Om. Good to see Anupama has also joined back. I think she's feeling better now. Good. Hari Om. So we start with chapter 13 today. Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga. The yoga of differentiation of the knower, the known and the knower actually. Kshetra and Kshetrajna, the known and the knower. We have completed 2 sections of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So congratulations to all of you, to all of us, congratulations. It's a big milestone. 2 sections we have completed. The Bhagavad Gita, as we all know, it's the knowledge, all of the knowledge that is contained in the Upanishads and the Vedas. All of it. And all of it presented in a succinct, comprise, clear, practical form by none other than Bhagavan Sri Krishna himself. So it's a privilege to be a student of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Further, not only that, the stage of the Bhagavad Gita, which is the Kurukshetra, a battlefield, it's an ideal setting for humanity to draw easy parallels with their own, with all of our own complicated and troubled states that we often find ourselves in throughout our lives. See, most of the problems in life, they come about with deep identification with our body, mind, and intellect. When we identify deeply with our own body, which is the physical being, the mind, which is the seat for all our emotions, and the intellect, which is the seat for logic, reasoning, judgment, and so on. And that identification is extremely strong, then, it leads to, or is the cause for a lot of problems, lot of issues that we face in our life. The body, mind, and intellect are the faculties, are our faculties that interact with the material world or the samsara, as we have seen. And identification with the body, mind, and intellect results in the person, the human being, being thrown about in the tumultuous ocean of samsara, the samsara sagara, like Bhagavan had put it, like a boat which is tossed about in the waves of the mighty ocean. Like that, this person who identifies with the body, mind, and intellect, the jivatma, is tossed about in the ocean of samsara. This then leads to an identity crisis, because we completely identify ourselves with the body, mind, and intellect, which is not our true identity. And that identity crisis leads about to various issues and ultimately to the state that Arjuna was, that we witnessed in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And Bhagavan Sri Krishna says, I lift them from the ocean of samsara. Tesham aham samudhartar mrityu samsara sagara. Tesham, for them, I lift them. Who is these them? Whose minds are set on me and whose intellect are set on me. So how does one get to the stage of having one's mind and intellect set on Bhagavan? In section 1, which is chapters 1 to 6, Bhagavan imparted the knowledge of the self, the jiva, and how through karma yoga and jnana yoga, the knowledge of the self can be made firm, drida. In section 2, which was chapter 7 to 12, Bhagavan imparted the knowledge on the ultimate reality, the Ishvara, and how through Bhakti Yoga, that knowledge of the ultimate reality can be transformed into single-pointed devotion. Any seeker who has learned what Bhagavan has taught till now and has abided by it can then set the mind and place the intellect on Bhagavan. Mayeva mana adatsva mayi buddhim niveshaya. And now Bhagwan proceeds to explain how such a person, one with the mind and intellect set on Bhagwan, mind set on Bhagwan, intellect placed on Bhagwan, is saved from this ocean of samsara. And that he does in section 3 of the Bhagavad Gita, from chapter 13 to 18. I and my, the sense of aham and mama. I, the ego, and my, what belongs to me. That connects a person to samsara. The identification with I and my happens in the BMI, in the body, mind, and intellect. This body, mind, intellect is the field in which this identification happens. It is the field in which this game of the world, the game of samsara is played, takes place. Everything happens within us, our perceptions, our ego, our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions. That is the play of whatever happens in this universe. Thus, this is the field in which this game of samsara takes place. And that field is called the kshetra. Like a captain of a cricket team, we will always see in the beginning of the match goes into the field to inspect the pitch and the remaining part of the ground also within those ropes. That pitch inspection is a must before the toss. And of course, the ground inspection, if it is full of grass or is there water in it and so on and so forth. And any captain who does a good job of the pitch inspection makes a good strategic play or plan to play that match which is going to be played. Similarly, the field of samsaric play is the kshetra. And the one who knows this field is then able to strategize to deal with and live in this samsaric world in a productive and fruitful manner. And this person who does the inspection of this kshetra and becomes aware, knows, gets the knowledge of the kshetra is called the kshetrajna. Obviously, this person who is a kshetrajna then can play this game of samsara in a much better fashion. Bhagwan starts the process of lifting this devotee from samsara by teaching the devotee how to distinguish between the field of play and the knower of the field of play. Often you get confused between the field itself and the knower. And Bhagwan helps us by teaching us how to distinguish. Vibhaga, distinguish. That's how we come to Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga, the yoga of differentiation of the known and the knower. In some texts, you will find this chapter starting with Arjuna's question in the first verse. And Arjuna says, Prakriti, which is matter, and Purusha, which is spirit. And also Kshetra, which is the field, and Kshetrajna, which is the knower of the field. And the knowledge, that which is to be known, which ought to be known. He says, O Keshava, I wish to learn all of this. That's the question that Arjuna asked. Now, if Arjuna had indeed asked this question, okay, then he must have, Arjuna we all know is a fantastic, intelligent student. But this question, as has been mentioned in a number of versions of the Bhagavad Gita, if he had indeed asked this question, then he's not only an intelligent, smart student, he's an unbelievably intelligent, smart student. Because these are topics which Bhagwan has still not even alluded to till now. See, a lot of things Bhagwan has spoken about, mentioned, given a hint, given an introduction, all of that. In chapter 2 also we saw. But Kshetra, Kshetrajna, how you know the knower, the known, all of that, Bhagwan has, these are, now Bhagwan is getting into fairly advanced topics where he is actually starting to talk about how he will lift the devotee out of the samsaric world. And for Arjuna to have asked this question must have been, and if that version is true, then Arjuna truly, we can say, is a blessed and gifted student. Like we talk about the most cream of the cream, as the gifted, as super gifted. However, commentaries which are classic commentaries, okay, the classical, what do you mean by classic commentaries? Commentaries by Shankaracharya, commentaries by Ramanujacharya, they do not have this Arjuna's question as the first verse. They begin the chapter with Bhagavan introducing this topic, not through Arjuna asking a question about this topic. So we would stick to the classic commentary, which is by the original writers, by at least in our sphere of our life, the original writer, Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, and so on, right? So we will stick to that version, and we will start with Bhagavan's introduction of this topic. So please note that if your book has, the Arjuna question as the first verse, then we will have this verse number confusion as we go about. So kindly note that if you have that Arjuna question as the first verse, then our verse 1 is that verse 2. You have to keep that in mind throughout the chapter. With that, let's get started with Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga.
Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha.
Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha.
Atatrayodashodhyayaha.
Atatrayodashodhyayaha.
Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yogaha.
Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yogaha.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha.
Idam Shariram Kaunteya.
Idam Shariram Kaunteya.
Kshetramitya Vidhiyate.
Kshetramitya Bhidhiyate.
Etadyo veti tam prahuhu.
Etadyo veti tam prahuhu.
Kshetrajna iti tatvidaha.
Kshetrajna iti tatvidaha.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha. Idam shariram kaunteya. Kshetramitya vidhiyate. Etadyo veti tam prahuhu. Kshetrajna iti tatvidaha.
The blessed Lord said, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, O Kaunteya, this body is called the Kshetra, the field. The one who knows this is thus called the Kshetrajna, the knower of the field. By the knowers, the sages. We'll see in detail. So the blessed Lord said, Kaunteya, O Kaunteya, he is son of Kunti. The way Sri Krishna addresses Arjuna is also for me another indication that Bhagavan directly started this topic or introduces this topic. O son of Kunti, O Kaunteya. Typically, we have seen till now, Bhagavan addresses Arjuna in various ways. He'll say, O Bharatar Sabha. He'll say, O Dhananjaya, Gudakesha, Kurushreshta. So, when he has to applaud Arjuna, when he has to give him a pat in his back, when he has to encourage him, when he has to goad him on for something, the style of Bhagavan addressing Arjuna is different. And then, O Kaunteya, O Partha, these are love-filled, benevolence-filled way of addressing. When Bhagavan wants to share, he wants to give, he wants to, what should I say, contribute or volunteer to give to Arjuna, right? He uses these terms of affection. So this also we can say that, because he says Kaunteya, because if Arjuna had asked that question, he would have been like, wow, Arjuna, you are a good student. Then maybe he should have said something like Bharatar Sabha, or Kurushreshta. Such a great student you are. You are the best among the best. Bharatar Sabha, the best among the Bharatas. Kurushreshta, the Shreshta, the best among the Kurus. Gudakesha, one who has conquered Tamas. Right? Dhananjaya, oh victorious person. Here he says, O Kaunteya. And then he says, Abhidhiyate. The terminology for Abhidhiyate means the terminology used. What is the terminology? What is thus called? What is referred to in this manner? And for what? Idam Shariram. The terminology for Idam Shariram. The terminology for this body. Idam, this Shariram, body. The body refers to the body of being and objects. So Bhagavan is talking about the body of being and objects, of everything, of which a body, this body is one part. Whatever can be objectified is this body. Whatever is cognized, can be perceived, can be cognized, is this body. And Bhagavan says that term is Kshetram. It is the field. So the Kshetram is nothing but the terminology used for this body of beings and objects. The field is a place where sowing and reaping takes place. So you sow the seeds and reap the flower and the fruits and so on and so forth, plants and so on, right? The game is played and the results are obtained in the field. Like we talked about the captain of the cricket team. Once the team gets into the field, the sport is played there and the result of the sport is experienced delivered in the field. Similarly, we experience the results of our tendencies, our thoughts, our actions, our opinions, all of that, our judgments in the gross body, the subtle body and the causal body. And Bhagavan says, Etadyo veti tam prahuhu. The one who knows this field and the experiences of the field is technically called prahuhu kshetrajna, the knower of the field. And who technically has given this name? He says, tad vidaha, that those knowers, by the knowers, the sages, the one who knows the kshetra and the kshetrajna, one who knows the kshetrajna. Any field becomes increasingly productive to the extent that we look after it, that we improve it. The more you look after the field, the better it becomes, the better the yields are, the better the results are. But in a fertile soil, it's not just the good. So if you take a plantation, in that plantation, you look after the plantation really well, and the field is beautiful, nice, very fertile, then you get the plant, the tree or the shrub or the bush, whatever you're growing, and you also get the weeds. The weeds also thrive in that fertile soil as much as the plant thrives in the fertile soil. In the same way, in the human BMI, in the human field of body, mind and intellect, a person reaps the fruits of both the good and the bad karma. Whatever we do, the fruits of that is reaped. And in this sense, the body, mind and intellect is the dharma kshetra for the jiva. The field in which the play of dharma happens. And the results are declared and the results are also experienced. Inclinations, impressions, habit, action, thoughts, judgments, we cultivate all of these in our body. When I say body, body, mind and intellect. And the result of all this is reaped in this body. And this is the kshetra. And the factor that is aware of the body and all the happenings in the body and what governs all these happenings that are going on, that principle of awareness or the consciousness. And that awareness or that knower, the person who is aware, is the kshetra. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa used the analogy of making pongal or khichdi to explain this beautifully. He said, and I quote, the human body may be compared to the pot. The mind and the intellect and the senses are like the water, the rice and the vegetables that are put into the pot. Within a while, the pot gets hot and the water then boils the rice and the vegetables. After some time, it becomes extremely hot. It's not even possible to touch the contents of the pot, to handle the contents of the pot. Similarly, it is the Shakti of the Brahman, the pure consciousness that enlivens the body, the mind and the intellect and the senses. Unquote. And Bhagavan continues further.
Kshetrajnam chapi mam vidhi
Kshetragyam chapi mam vidhi
सर्वक्षेत्रेषु भारत
sarvakshetreshu bharata
क्षेत्र क्षेत्रज्ञयोर्ज्ञानम्
kshetra kshetrajnayor jnanam
यत्तज्ज्ञानं मतं मम
yatta jnanam matam mama
क्षेत्रज्ञं चापि मां विद्धि सर्वक्षेत्रेषु भारत क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञयोर्ज्ञानं यत्तज्ज्ञानं मतं मम.
And further, please understand, Bhagavan is saying that the knower of the field in all fields is me, O Bharata. The knowledge of the field, the knower of the field is considered by me as that knowledge. So what does he say? Chapi, chapi and cha api, and further and also vidhi, understand, know, comprehend that kshetragyam, the knower of the field, sarva kshetreshu, in all the fields, mam is me. So me, the individual, Srini Raghavan, I have my body, I have my mind, I have my intellect, and I am aware of all of this. But do I really know it? Do I really know my body, my mind, and intellect? Whenever something, there's a stomach ache, I have no clue what the heck is going on, right? Forget about anything other much bigger than that. However, one who is able to step away from this body, mind, and intellect, comprehend it, and the power that enlivens it. So one is able to step out of or step away from this body, mind, and intellect that we so much identify with, comprehend it, understand it, and also the power that enlivens it. That person is the true knower of the self and the non-self. What is the self and what is the not self? And this is only my body, my individual body that I'm talking about. And there are sages who understand and are able to distinguish between this self and this not self. But Bhagavan, what does he say here? He says he is the knower of the field in all fields. My body, your body, whatever we see, the pet next door, the birds that fly in the sky, the flowers, the fruits and the plants, all objects and all beings, the tree that grows, this iPad, all of it. And he says he is the knower of the field in all the fields. So he knows all the material aspects of creation, that is all the kshetras, and the super consciousness or the super self, which is the common consciousness or the kshetragya in all of these kshetras. And then he adds jnanam, the knowledge, kshetragyayor, knowledge of the field and the knower of the field. Matam mama is considered by me as jnanam, that knowledge. So Prakriti is called Kshetra. Prakriti, which is all of creation, is called Kshetra. That play of the samsaric world, the field of play of the samsaric world. And that is the non-self, which is not the self. It is insentient. And the Purusha is the Kshetragya, is the self who is sentient. The Purusha identifies with the Prakriti, and the more the identification, more the ownership that is assumed of the Prakriti. This is me, this belongs to me. And the Purusha not only identifies with the Prakriti, but the characteristics of the Prakriti. It's like light that is passing through a colored prism. Light is normal, let's say sunlight, for example, not colored light, white sunlight, passing through a colored prism, it gets imbued with that color of that prism. In a similar manner, the Purusha who identifies with the body, mind, and intellect gets imbued with the characteristics of the Prakriti. And such a Purusha is called Jivatman. The cosmic intelligence is untouched by Prakriti. See, the sunlight itself is untouched by Prakriti. It is the light we see emerging from the prism which is colored. If you remove the prism, you will go back to that same original white light. Similarly, the super consciousness, the cosmic intelligence, is untouched by Prakriti. At times, it may appear to be imbued with the characteristics of Prakriti. It's just an appearance. In reality, it is not. That appearance happens because of the involvement. Remember, we talked about detached involvement. So the cosmic intelligence also gets involved, like Sri Krishna is involved. He is the cosmic intelligence, but he's involved and appears as a normal human being, as the charioteer, but in reality is not. This cosmic intelligence is called Ishvara or Paramatma. The Ishvara is the innermost self in all of Prakriti. And thus the Ishvara is the Kshetrajna of in all the Kshetras. And Bhagavan says that Jnana or knowledge is the true understanding of both the Kshetra and the Kshetrajna. Understanding both the Prakriti and the Purusha, the Kshetra and the Kshetrajna, that knowledge is true knowledge. Knowledge pertaining to the Kshetra is termed as Apara Vidya or the lower knowledge. And this includes knowledge of the Vedas, knowledge of all scriptural text, whatever it may be, across religions, literature, grammar, all branches of science, mathematics, arts, all branches of arts, all of these are this knowledge of the created world, knowledge of the Kshetra, the Apara Prakriti. And all of these are classified as Apara Vidya. The knowledge pertaining to the Kshetrajna, the self, is termed as Paravidya, superior knowledge. The self-knowledge or Brahmajnana is classified as Paravidya. Inquiry, any kind of intellectual, mind-oriented inquiry, seeking of knowledge, commences with a diligent study of the Prakriti, of nature, of the non-self, and then culminates in the study of and the jnana of the Brahman, Brahma Jnana. Any knowledge that is secular only and is bereft of spiritual knowledge or Brahma Jnana is incomplete, is not complete knowledge. And the sacred knowledge, it will not come about without the knowledge of the Prakriti, without the knowledge of the secular. They are tightly knit. Just getting the knowledge of the Prakriti, knowing all the arts and crafts, knowing all of science, space, brain and body and heart and everything and the space, all of this which is part of creation, without understanding the spiritual knowledge, that knowledge is incomplete. And the spiritual knowledge will not even come about without the knowledge of the Prakriti. Thus, Bhagavan says that true knowledge consists of wisdom pertaining to both the phenomenon, which is the created element, and the noumenon, both of it together. So we've all heard about this very interesting story of Ganesha and Kartikeya. Very, very beautiful, nice story. All of us must have heard about it. Sage Narada once brought a mango fruit to Shiva and Parvati. And anyone who consumed this mango fruit, it's a special mango. Anyone who consumed it would get special wisdom, special powers. So Shiva and Parvati, they don't need it. They're saying two of our children, the two sons, should have it. And to decide who should get the fruit, they arrange for a competition between Kartikeya and Ganesha. And the competition is that whoever goes out and returns first after surveying and gaining knowledge of the entire existence would get the prize, which is the fruit. So everyone there, Shiva, Parvati, Ganesha, Kartikeya, whoever was witnessing, all the gods, sage Narada, everyone knew that Kartikeya is much more swifter, not only a lot more swifter and quicker than this rotund Ganesha, his vehicle is also much more faster. The peacock compared to the mouse, much more faster. So it was no big theory or no big rocket science to figure out who is going to win. Then why would this mighty Shiva and this loving Parvati set such a competition for their two sons? Why would they do that? The story for children and story for this material world is beautiful. It goes on and says that Kartikeya took his peacock and flew off swiftly and covered the entire three worlds, gained knowledge from all of that and came. Ganesha very smartly went around his parents and then he said, you are my entire existence, whatever it may be. The entire existence is you both. And one version of the story says that Ganesha won the prize and Kartikeya got upset and he went and started doing penance in a hill and then had to be pacified by Ganesha. Another version of the story says Kartikeya understood, seeing merit in this philosophy and why Shiva and Parvati's parents were all in all, and accepted it very cheerfully. These above two versions are very nice for teaching lessons, learning nice lessons in the material world. So, from the perspective of this verse, let us see if there is a third version, which is not heard at all, not heard much, right? Both brothers are wise in their own way and their own methods. Both of them, what they did was right, and there's a big learning for all of us in the context of this verse. Kartikeya inquired into the magnificent Prakriti, all of creation. He went and did an analysis of that. And Ganesha inquired into the unmanifest Purusha. And a harmonious combination of the knowledge gained by Kartikeya and by Ganesha of both these two inquiries, that constitutes what Bhagavan calls true knowledge. Knowing one at the exclusion of the other is imperfect knowledge. Knowing both together is true knowledge. Human beings today, they pursue scientific and artistic inquiry at the exclusion of spiritual inquiry. It is a true search of Prakriti, just like Kartikeya did a true search of the three worlds to win the trophy. And as much as Kartikeya's search terminated in the Supreme, terminated in the Divine, all those who are studying and thriving in the material manifest world will soon learn the ultimate lesson or make the ultimate discovery. Because through the study of creation, what are we doing? We are not inventing anything, we are discovering. Because creation is already there. We are only discovering what is already there. And that ultimate discovery, that the manifest universe has its origin, has its sustenance and its dissolution in the cosmic intelligence. That ultimate discovery will be made by all pursuers. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa had said, and I quote, there are in the human temple two entities, the little Jivatman and the great Paramatman. The former is dependent on the latter. The Jivatman is dependent on the Paramatman. As electricity from the same source illuminates all the houses, the Paramatman gives light to all Jivatmans. In the individual house, the same electricity is there. In my neighbor's house also, the same electricity is there. In all the houses of this city and the country and the world, the same electricity is there. Similarly, the Paramatman enlivens all the Jivatmans. This is one of the most important verses of the Bhagavad Gita, in which Bhagavan distinguishes between the seen, the seer, and the reality. Gurudev Swami Chinmayanandaji puts this in a beautiful way, and I quote, the body, the mind, the intellect are made up of matter. Matter, whether gross or subtle, is inert and insentient. There must be something else other than matter, other than the BMI, the body, mind, and intellect, that enlivens the body, mind, and intellect. And that one reality is indicated by the sound symbol Om, which is nothing but the superconsciousness. When we get the discrimination to distinguish between the Kshetra and the Kshetrajna, then identification with what we take ourselves to be ceases, it goes away. Boy, girl, man, woman, adult, child, animal, human being, plant, stone, black, white, American, Asian, Ukrainian, Russian, all of that, all these identifications, they go away, they cease to be. And the weightage put on them, the value put on them also goes away. And continuing further, Bhagavan says,
Tatshetram yacha yadrikcha
Tatshetram yacha yadrikcha
yadvikari yataschayat
yadvikari yataschayat
sachayo yat prabhavascha
sachayo yat prabhavascha
tatsamasena me shrunu
tatsamasena me shrunu
Tatshetram yacha yadrikcha yadvikari yataschayat sachayo yat prabhavascha tatsamasena me shrunu.
tat yach tat yaha, that which kshetram is termed at kshetra. Yadrikcha, what it is like. Yadrik, what is its nature? What is its form? What are its characteristics? Yadrik, cha, and yadvikari, what its modifications are. Yatascha yat, and what is created from it, what comes about from it, what arises from it. So what is this creation like? What are the modifications of this creation? What comes about from this creation? All of that, sachayaha, and Bhagavan says, sachayaha, and from what source is it from? All this creation, where is it from? Whence? Sachayaha is whence. So he's saying, what is it like? What its modifications? What are created from it? And from where has it come? Whereabouts from where it has originated? This creation itself. Which means this Sachayaha refers to Kshetrajna. So here till Yadrikcha, Yadvikari, Yatascha Yat, he is talking about the Kshetra, the field, the non-self, all of creation. And when he says Sachayaha, he is talking about the Kshetrajna, the knower of the field, the self. And Yat Prabhavascha, what are the glories of this Kshetrajna? Or what are the powers of this Kshetrajna? Tat Samasena, that in essence. Samasena means in essence. See, we started this Satsang saying, the entire Bhagavad Gita is all of the teachings of the Vedas and the Upanishads and everything in essence. So Bhagavan says in essence beautifully so that we grasp everything. Tat Samasena, that in essence, Shrinu me, or me Shrinu, listen from me. And before getting into the topic itself, so Bhagavan is saying, I will teach this to you in essence. You please listen, pay attention. Another meaning for Shrinu is pay attention. And before diving into the topic, Sri Krishna glorifies it and also highlights the eternal nature of this knowledge in the next verse.
Rishibir bahuda geetam
Rishibhir bahuda geetam
Chandobir vividai prataka
Chandobhir vividai pratak
Brahma sutra padaishchaiva
Brahma sutra padaishchaiva
Hetu madbir vinishchitaihi
Ye tu madbhir vinishchitaihi
Rishibir bahuda geetam Chandobir vividai prataka Brahma sutra padaishchaiva Hetu madbir vinishchitaihi.
Geetam, it is sung. Rishibhihi, by Rishis. Bahuda, in many ways. Vividaihi, in various, pritak, distinctive. Chandobhihi, Vedic chants, cha and iva, even, Brahma Sutra Padaihi, in sutras and pradas that indicate Brahman, Vinishchitaihi, decisively, Hetu Madbihi, full of reason, logic. So Bhagavan is saying, sung by rishis in many ways, in various distinctive Vedic chants, and even in sutras and padas that indicate Brahman, decisively and full of reason. So Sri Krishna first, he conveys a few very important points here before he gets into teaching us about the Kshetra and the Kshetrajna. He says first that this truth of true knowledge. What is true knowledge? Knowledge of the Kshetra and knowledge of the Kshetrajna, both together. The truth of this true knowledge remains unaffected by passage of time. It is eternal. Even before Krishna himself is going to expound this, the rishis have taken care to express it in various and many ways. So that's the first point he brings about. That what I'm going to tell you has already been sung about, told about, specified, chanted about, and so on and so forth. And he says Geetam, presented in a musical manner that can be sung in a way to generate positive emotion. See, Geetam is a beautiful statement here, okay? So what did we start with? We started with the troubles that are caused by identifying closely with samsara. The body, mind, and intellect gets so attached to samsara that we go through the upheavals, like the boat being tossed about. We get tossed about in the ocean of samsara. Geetam is a manner in which positive, see, when we listen to bhajans, spiritual songs and all that, immediate positive emotion comes about in the mind. So a musical manner that generates positive emotion, that's Geetam. Chandobhi. Chanda refers to Veda mantras. Chanda is Veda mantras. Revealed text from the Karma Kanda. What is to be done, what is not to be done. Presented in the Vedic mantras. Brahma Sutra Padaihi. Brahman is Brahma. Sutra Padaihi. Sutras and padas that indicate Brahman. The sutras and padas that show that everything is Brahman. Everything is Brahman. There are sutras and padas that just keep saying this again and again and again in various ways. And in all these various ways, it has been shown that they all mean the same. All the routes go to the same goal, to the same, all path take us to one destination. That one destination is Brahman. And this is covered in the Jnana Kanda. So sutras are that which indicate, express indirectly. For example, Brahman is that, we have read all about all this, okay? So Brahman is that from which the entire realm has come about, in which it exists and into which it dissolves. So we are explaining the Brahman indirectly. Sutras explain indirectly, either through derived association, as we just saw. And this derived association is called Tarastha Lakshana. Lakshana means association, Tarastha means derived. And another way it is explained indirectly is through negation. That we saw last time, if you remember, when we spoke about pure consciousness. Neti, what it is not. So that is called Athad Vyavritti Lakshana. That Vyavritti means negation, that which is not this. That type of association, Lakshana. And padas are words that directly state reality. For example, Satyam. Or for example, like Bhagavan said in chapter 7, verse 6, he said, Etad yonini bhutani sarvanityupadharaya aham kritsnatsya jagataha prabhava pralayastatha. So Bhagavan had said, know that these two, the aparaprakriti and the paraprakriti, the creation, the non-self, and the self, the Purusha, are the womb of all beings. I am the origin. and dissolution of the entire universe. Direct statement. So Bhagavan makes a lot of direct statement in the Bhagavad Gita. So we don't take that as padas. Padas are in the Upanishads and Vedas. Direct statements. Bhagavan then conveys. So first he conveyed the eternity of all of this. Then he conveyed how in various ways this is being preserved and communicated and shared through generations. And then he says that these are full of reason. Hetu madbihi. These are not just blank statements. There is reason. And these are decisive. Vinishchitaihi. So Sri Krishna is saying these are not intellectual dictations, the commandments, like we have in some places, right? Of course, we have in, the other religions, but even in Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma, commandments have come about. Bhagavan repeatedly says, that none of the original teachings are quote unquote commandments, that are thrust upon the helpless human beings by these angels of the heavens, that have special vision into seeing the secret knowledge that you can never get. Bhagavan says anyone, especially the human being, can realize the ultimate reality. Anyone and everyone. And Bhagavan says, on the contrary, these are full of reason. Reason is something which can be questioned, justified, proven, logically shown, just like science does. That is one of the beauty of Sanatana Dharma, that just like science, you can reason out. There's no dictation and commandment. And if you follow, you get salvation. If you don't follow, you get hell. That's not true here. Here you reason out. And once you reason out, you get convinced. Vinishchitaihi. Through that reason, you get conviction. When a truth is declared along with logical reason, then the conclusions are acceptable. And the appeal of reason is thus decisive. Bhagavan will now explain all of this in essence, like he says. We shall see that in the next satsang. Hari Om, Shri Krishna. So we finished 5 minutes early. Very good.
We'll repeat the verses.
Yes.
Okay. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Atatrayodashodhyayaha. Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yogaha. Shri Bhagavanuvacha. Idam Shariram Kaunteya. Kshetramithyabhidhiyate. Etadhyo veti tam prahu. Kshetrajna iti tatvidaha. Kshetrajnam chapi mam vidhi. Sarvashetreshu bharata. Kshetra kshetrajnayor jnanam. Yatta jnanam patam mama. Tatshetram yachaya drikcha. Yadvikari yatascha yat. Sachayo yatta bhavascha. Tatsamasena mishrunu. Rishibir bahuda gitam. Chandobir prataka. Brahma sutra padai shaiva. Hetu madbir vinishchitaihi. Om asato ma sadgamaya. Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya. Mrityurma amritam gamaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Thank you. So next satsang onwards, in this we'll start like Bhagavan says, Samasena Neshrunu.
I have a question, and this is what I have understood, and hence the question. at one point you said, if the differentiation between two things are taken away and the value that it is associated with, it kind of goes off. So if I have to find a difference between something that's true and something that's false based on a certain perception, and then look at it from a neutral angle, that's what it means.
No, I'm sorry, but I'm not really understanding what you're saying. See, you're putting it in your own language. So what, okay, let me try and come back to the language used here. So what Bhagavan says is that true knowledge is something that comprises knowledge of the all elements of creation, which is the Kshetra, which is the field in which the samsaric play takes place, and the one who knows this field, the Kshetrajna. So understanding the Kshetra and understanding the knower of the Kshetra, both together is true knowledge. So you talked about true and false. So I didn't understand what you're referring to as true and what you're referring to as false. Both are true, both are, both are true.
No,
Let me not say right now both are false.
No, that's not what I meant. So while you were describing one of the words, you said when the differentiation of certain thing is taken away and the value that is put on it is also taken away. From that context, I'm trying to understand.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah. No, okay, so what you're saying, so when we know this, see, the point that I was talking about is, when we understand the Kshetra, when we understand this field of samsaric play, and when we understand the knower of this field of samsaric play, which is the self, then where does black and white come? Where does tall and short come? Where does man and woman come into play? All that lose relevance. In fact, why the value is taken away? It completely loses relevance. What is the sense of being Westerner and Easterner? The white people and the black people and the brown people. All this, that kind of discrimination. See, here discrimination stands for distinguishing between the Kshetra and the Kshetrajna, the awareness, the Viveka. See, discrimination means Viveka, but discrimination also means putting one above and another below, right? So that type of discrimination which people end up doing because of the characteristics of the Kshetra. See, the characteristics, so winner and loser. So you go play a cricket match in a field, I won, you lost. See, but if you understand the field and the knower of the field, then yes, you play the match, you win, you lose, but it doesn't matter. That is what I was talking.
Oh, God, thank you.
Any other thought? Thank you. Okay, if there's no other thought, then good. We actually finished one of the rare sessions. You're done at 5 o'clock. I'm just pausing if someone else comes up with something. Otherwise, we'll say Hari Om and meet next Saturday. I actually like the way Radhika keeps her video on, and it's like I'm also talking to somebody. So I'll encourage more of you to do that. Nowadays, everyone has got the hang of all this connectivity because of these online sessions and working from home and online classes and all of that. It's become so easy. So yeah, as much as possible, switch on the video also. Okay, thank you, Hari Om. We'll continue chapter 13 next Saturday. Hari Om.